Bryson DeChambeau.
Yeah, sure. So, the story is interesting. I got into the sports management business in 2014, actually from a phone call from Andrew Whitlieb, who is the president of GSE Worldwide, Jim Furyk's agent for 30 years now, who I've had the relationship with, like we talked about before. And he said to me, he said, Brett, I'm looking to bring on a young agent and really have them build their own book of business on the firm's dime. We've got a lot of experienced agents. We need someone young who's ready to hustle. And I said, okay, I'm living down here in Florida right now after school. I really don't want to move back to the Northeast. Growing up in Philly, I had enough of the snow. Never wanted to go back to the Northeast. I said, I'm not coming to New York. He said, well, you don't have a choice, but let's just come up. This was a Tuesday. I'll never forget it. It was a Tuesday. I was at Panera Bread in Boca Raton in 2014 when he called me. And ultimately, I agreed to meet him later that week. It was on a Friday. I got on a plane, flew up to New York, met with Andrew, and ultimately walked away with a job to join the firm at the time was called the Legacy Agency, which is now GSE Worldwide. Sure. So I joined the firm, moved up to New York against my wishes at the time, but realized that I had an opportunity to get into the world of sports management that I always had a passion for. So I did it. 2 weeks into the job, they send me on my way and they say, go out and recruit. You know what talent looks like. Go out and recruit. I said, how? Who do I talk to? What do I do? They said, you'll figure it out. You know what talent is. So my first event I ever went to was the 2014 U.S. Amateur at Atlanta Athletic Club. It was the morning of the quarterfinals. And I walked onto the driving range just as the sun was coming up. It was about 6:45 in the morning. There was one player on the driving range. And as I got closer, I saw the placard behind the player, and it said DeChambeau. Never heard of DeChambeau. I was down there on a mission to go meet Ali Schneider-Jans and Denny McCarthy, some of the top-ranked players in the world in the amateur ranks. And those are the guys I was going to focus on because that's what I was told to go do. And that's, obviously want to go for the best. Like you can right out of the box, you got to just shoot for the best. So I see this kid, DeChambeau. I start watching him swing. He's wearing this goofy hat. He's got a caddy with him who's got a pull cart, and I wasn't carrying the bag. I start watching him swing, and I'm like, wow, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, this one playing golf swing reminds me of Mo Norman. I'm a little bit of a golf. We've got a lot of whatnot. So
Savant.
savant, for lack of a better term. And I'm watching him swing, and I'm saying, wow, this looks really, really different. And I was just fascinated and mesmerized by it. And I kept watching him, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go watch this kid play today. Well, went out, watched him play. He played a kid from the University of Houston who never made it on tour. Ramon Robledo was his name, and he kicked Bryson's ass that day. Absolutely kicked his ass. But I watched, and I saw something that I've never seen before in a young golfer, and that was just this unique charisma along with a very homemade golf swing. And I said, wow, if this kid, can figure it out, I'm going to stay on him. Like, I think there's something here. I looked him up. He was ranked 57th in the World Amateur Golf Ranking and 37th in the College Golf Stat at the time. So I went back. I told the guys in the office, like, there's someone I want to follow. They said, what's he ranked? And I told them the rank. They said, you're crazy. Like, that's not how this works. You need to focus on the best. I said, guys, I'm telling you, there's something here.
Mm.
I didn't introduce myself to Bryson that day because he wasn't too happy with how he played. I didn't really want to say anything. But later that night, I went back to my computer at the hotel and I friended him on Facebook. And I wrote him a message on Facebook that I still have on my phone today. Introduced myself and told him I'm an agent with the Legacy Agency and watched him play today. Didn't want to bother him, but hopefully have the opportunity to meet him at some point in time and speak with him. Never got a response, but 2 weeks later was his first golf tournament of the season, the college golf tournament of the season at Erin Hills in Wisconsin, where they've hosted the U.S. Open in the past. And I went out. I told my guys at the office in New York, I said, I'm going to go watch this kid. They said, you're crazy. You're not spending your time on the right people. I said, okay, say whatever you want. I said, I know what talent looks like. There's something very unique here. Now, back up a little bit. Bryson had a scholarship offered to him from Stanford University, but when he switched to the single length clubs in high school, they pulled the scholarship. So a lot of people are very questionable. I mean, he was a very well-known amateur golfer in California, but not necessarily in the United States, outside of California, because he didn't travel AJGA events and stuff like that. So he was well-known in California, but outside of that, he kind of was a bit of an unknown. But people, had heard rumblings in the world of golf that there's this very unique talent, playing one-length clubs, swinging on a one-playing golf swing. That was that. So fast forward to Erin Hills. I arrive on Sunday, the practice round, and I'll never forget it like it was yesterday, where I'm standing near the putting green and I see Bryson walking over the hill from the driving range, and I go up to him and take my hat off and introduce myself. I said, Bryson, Brett Falkoff with the Legacy Agency. Pleasure to meet you. I friended you on Facebook. And he said to me, oh, I saw your message. I'm so sorry I didn't respond. It's really nice to meet you. You're the first agent that's ever approached me. He's like, you look kind of young. How old are you? I said, I'm 25. I said, I may look young, but, I may look young, but I know plenty. And he kind of chuckled and said, well, thanks for coming out to watch me. Long story short, I stayed the first day. He played really well. I think he shot 4 under par. Second day, he shot 3 under par, and I called the office and said, "Guys, I'm not leaving. He's got a chance to win this golf tournament." It's 3 days in college. Lo and behold, he wins the first tournament of the season. I go back to the office and say, "Guys, I'm telling you, there's something here." And that was my start of essentially, for lack of a better term, stalking Bryson DeChambeau for the next 19 months.
Wow.
And I was the first one in, and I built key relationships with those that were closest to him, which positioned me for success when it came time for Bryson and at the time his team that he had assembled around him to make this decision as to who to choose as his agent as he entered, professional golf. Obviously, he had a lot of success after I started following him. He won the NCAA championship in 2015 at the Concession Club in Bradenton. Followed by later that summer, he won the U.S. Amateur at the Olympia Fields in Chicago. So agents came out of the woodwork. They just started jumping on this guy like
And
crazy.
everybody, all the big
Everybody,
agents, right?
Mark Steinberg, Tiger's agent, Jay Danzy, Spieth's agent, Steve Loy, Phil Mickelson's agent. Here I was, a 26-year-old kid at the time, at the end, with no experience in the business, with no clients. And ultimately, his team took a chance on someone who was hungry to go out there and, help build this kid's career. So I'm forever grateful to all those individuals and to Bryson for giving me the opportunity. And we sit here, 10 years later, building a very, very unique sports, empire, for lack of a better term, for an individual athlete. And it's been a ton of fun, and I'm incredibly grateful to be a
Yeah,
part of
but
it.
going back to how you were tenacious and you didn't give up.
No, I
You
didn't
you
give up.
you saw something and, whether it's being a sports agent or any kind of business, right? You can't give up. You gotta keep going for it, and you gotta work your ass off, and, look, what would have happened, Brett, if he said, "Hey, Brett, I like you a lot. We built up a nice relationship, but I gotta play a safe bet. I'm gonna go with Phil Mickelson's."
I would have understood. Here I was, a 26-year-old kid with no experience and no clients.
Yeah,
Um, who knows where I'd be today? I think about it often, like, yes, I've worked hard. I put myself in great position to be successful, but things have to, go your way. There's definitely luck involved in life. There's luck involved in business. The chips have to fall your way. And I'm
the
grateful they
luckier
did.
the harder you work, the luckier you
Harder you
get,
work, the luckier you
right?
get. You
Old
got
s
to position yourself for success. So, but it's been an incredible journey, and I've got to do things I could have only dreamed of. So, and from my perspective, we're just getting started. I think, we'll call it the first 10 years chapter one, and we're excited about chapter two.
Yeah, he's still a really young guy, right?
He's only 30. What is he? 32 years old. So he's really not that old. But
yeah.
in terms of golf, he's a veteran now.
Oh, he's totally a vet. Now talk about, why he's called the scientist. It's kind of an odd name
Yeah,
for a
sure.
golfer,
So,
right?
he, believe it or not, today he doesn't even like to be referred to it as a scientist. He prefers to be referred to more as the entertainer, because he feels that he's providing great entertainment for the fans and those that watch him on YouTube. And he's really morphed into almost an actor, for lack of a better term. And he's done an amazing job, even though that's who he is. He entertains and inspires. Um, you know, the scientist early on, because he did so many things that were surrounded around physics, unlike people have ever seen before in golf. So he was branded the scientist. But after, I would say 5, 6 years into his career, he realized that he didn't want to be the nerdy scientist. He wanted to be different, but in a quote unquote cool way. He wanted to entertain, educate, and inspire. Those are the three sort of key words that he uses throughout his career: entertain, educate, and inspire. And that's essentially, what he focuses on every single day when he wakes up. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
amazing.
he's definitely more from the scientist to the entertainer over the past few years.